Welcome, welcome. Please sit down, please sit down. Today we're going to cover the very, very important topic of how to properly save and budget your money so that you can afford more RC crawlers. I am the head of the Department of RC Crawler Efficiency, making you more efficient at purchasing your RC crawlers. And my name is Mr. X.
Your name is X?
Yes, my name is X. X is the best letter because it is the most efficient. It's just two lines, simple, straight. They just intersect. They pack so much meaning into them. That is why I have named all of my cars, all of my spaceships, and all of my social media platforms with the letter X.
So, what's the name of your department again?
What do you mean, what is the name? It's very easy to see. It is Department of RC Crawler Efficiency.
And what does that spell?
Dork.
So you're the...
I am the head dork. Now, as we get into the numbers.
Alright guys, that's probably enough jokes, but welcome back, Path Seekers. I am again headed for the rock pile, and today I hope to inspire you and just give you an idea. I'm gonna recommend something that you do not have to do. You don't have to listen to me. It may not work for you. You may do it differently. You may disagree, and disagreeing is okay, especially if you comment with your disagreements, because comments really help. Wow. But today I want to talk about people who want an RC crawler and they don't have one. And I want to talk about the best way to get one. But I'm going to do that best if I talk while I drive. So here is a stock axial SCX24 C10. See if we can drive in the snow. Come on, buddy. It's not great weather outside today, but a bad day outside is still better than a good day inside. Now I want to talk about how you can afford these, because let's admit it, they can be kind of expensive. I think the cheapest one you can get right now without any sales going on, if you go on eBay, you can get a base camp for about $107. And that doesn't even have all of the aesthetic features that this C10 has on it. And that's a lot of money, especially if you're a teenager or 12 years old, or maybe you're in college and you want to try rock crawling. I've seen people asking this question online, saying, is there a way I can get a video game or something so I can try rock crawling virtually? Because I can't do it. I'm in college. Well, the best answer is actually an RC. But an RC is, again, going to cost you around $100. I think you could get a JLU for like $130. This canyon is really packed with snow. We may need to find a different spot to do this. And $130 is no joke. That's a significant chunk of change, guys. So where are you going to get it? Well, I'm just going to recommend you try and be more efficient. Let's play with this idea first. You're in college. You want to try an RC, right? These things are great. If you were in college, you could keep it in your backpack. Oop, we rolled. Wait, I can save it. You can keep it in your backpack and you can crawl on drainage rocks and different obstacles you find around the campus. I keep one in the back of my car anytime I'm leaving places, because you just stop at a rest area, you'll find something to crawl on. Sometimes they even decorate rest areas with rocks, which is fantastic. So it's a great thing to have while you're in college, but where are you going to get the money for it? First, try and save the money rather than make the money, because it's easier to not spend money than it is to actually make more of it. I don't know. We're going to get up there. Way to go, Chevy. And what I mean is, how much are you spending on your lunches every day? Like, let's say you're an adult and you go out to work, and every day you just stop at McDonald's for lunch. Well, I can't eat like at a Wendy's or McDonald's for less than $5 these days. I don't think we're going to quite make that today while it's wet. I think it would do it if it was dry. And $5 every day for lunch adds up to... Come on, now I'm stuck. $5 every day for lunch for a week adds up to $35 a week, which means if you were to take that same $35, spend $10 at the grocery store, and purchase something else to eat for lunch, like sandwiches or salads or something, you'd be able to save the rest of the money for your Jeep fund, your Chevy fund, your Toyota fund, whatever fund you want to put into it. I want to put forth to you that you could do this in 3 phases. And the first phase, you just need to get a truck. You just need to get a stock truck and just go out and enjoy driving it outside. This is so much healthier for you than playing video games or just watching other people doing it on YouTube. To actually get out and be doing it. Try this over here. So if you'll save up even just $3 a day, $3 a day is actually more than 20 bucks a week. And 20 bucks a week times, let's say 6 weeks, you have $120. You have enough money to buy an RC. Whoop. And you may make that money just skipping lunch some days, buying yourself a cheaper lunch. How much do you spend on your coffee every single day? That stuff adds up. And eventually, if you cut enough stuff out of the budget, you'll be able to buy your own RC. And this could be you. Ta-da! I'm going to recommend that when you get your truck stock, that you just keep driving it as stock for at least another 5 to 6 weeks while you keep saving up. And then I'm going to have some recommended upgrades for you. I have a video about 5 tips that'll make you better at crawling. That would be a good thing to watch during your first phase. And you know what? Even before you get the truck, while you're saving up for the initial amount, try and decide what you want for an RC. What do you want for a body? What do you want for a model of RC? These are SCX24s that I'm using today, and they are very capable. Not great in the snow with this one. They're very capable, and they're very upgradable. Oh, boy. But there are some, let's admit it, some frustrating moments where the stock trucks just aren't quite getting the job done. However, there's still a lot that you can do, and there's a lot of fun to be had just while stock. And I think driving it for 6 weeks and learning the limitations of, physics is going to be a good lesson and help you build upon that skill when we start upgrading and modifying it in phase 2. So here's another idea. Maybe you're not in college. Maybe you're a really young kid. Let's see if I can... Nope. So let's try this another way. Maybe you have maybe you're a grandfather or you're a father and you got a 10 or 12-year-old son or grandson and he wants to, or daughter, and he wants to try an RC. Well, you tell him if he mows the lawn every week, you'll pay him $20, $25, depending on how big your lawn is or how generous you are. And tell him if he saves it up, in 5 to 6 weeks, he's going to be able to get an RC crawler. And then he can keep saving and start buying upgrades later. But if you see, there are more expensive rigs out there that, in the reviews, perform far better than an SCX24 out of the box. But they also cost twice as much. So if we buy an SCX24, we have something to drive for our next 6 weeks while we're saving up for phase 2. And again, I think it's a good learning experience. And this is a great way to get kids not only into the hobby, but teach them how to save up their money and teach them how to work for something that they want and work for something that, is worth the effort. Excuse me while I just get lost in cool images of this thing cruising down the creek. They are waterproof, but they are not submarines. So stuff like this I found will make the bearings and axle shafts rusty, but that's not going to kill the RC. I want to avoid that deep spot, though. All right, so you need to get out there and get into the hobby and start working towards having a rig. And it'll be worth your time. And guess what? If you get to phase 1 and you start driving this and you just decide you don't like this hobby, you don't like rock crawling, or you don't like being outside, or maybe you find that you didn't have as much spare time as you thought you would, well then you're only $100 in. If you had bought a bigger, more expensive and more capable rig, well, you spent more money on it and spent more time. And then we're going to move on to stage 2. Let's say you're liking the hobby, but you're getting kind of frustrated and you want more steering servo power and things like that. So we're going to get these upgrades. And I have this truck, which is a good representation of phase 2. This is my dad's K5 Blazer that I built for him. And oh, I love this truck. It's a copy. I copied the paint and the body styling off of a truck that my dad drove back in the 80s. What it has, there's a whole video on every single part if you want to get a more in-depth talk about it and more information about the truck that it's designed after. But I'm going to recommend for phase 2, when you keep saving up your money, your next $100 to $130, buy some wheels and tires. The Proline ones come together, and the stock rims are not terrible. I think probably one of these days I got to start getting some upgraded rims. Everyone says that the weight in the rims really helps. But wheels and tires, get yourself a steering servo, because the steering servos are kind of weak on the stock ones, and especially once you add bigger tires and weights, it will be hard to maneuver in some positions where there's a lot of weight on the front end. So we got wheels, tires, steering servo, and then brass. I have brass differential covers, 2 of them, and brass steering knuckles on this truck. Oh my goodness, it's going to come through there. Wow! You can see the performance gains made with another $130 in parts, which actually, this truck as it sits, I think has this one only has $122 in parts if we count the upgrade motor that I installed on it. I've installed that since the video about it. But it's going to give you steering power. You're going to have much more traction. And the brass parts really help it have the proper weight bias and move the weight down low. Oof, and that motor. I love these Little Guy Racing Parts 66-turn Reaper motors. They have lots of torque, and they're so much smoother. It's easier to do complex obstacles. Ooh, we're digging a hole. You can see if I just keep backing up, I can plow through this stuff. And also once you get to phase 2, like I said, drive it stock first because the stock truck works great. Oh, I also have a battery in there. Okay, I'm sorry. So recap on the parts. You need wheels, tires, servo, brass, and a battery. And then I actually have upgraded steering and suspension linkages as well. You can even do that. This is on a cheap build. If you go on Amazon, you buy your parts right, you'll be able to save a lot of money. And this is what I would recommend for a budget build. For your first modifications, they make a great difference. See if we can make what that other Chevy couldn't. Going where no Chevy has gone before. There's also homemade modifications that you can do. You can create flex extensions. I have a video about how to make those on my channel, and they worked really good on my Gladiator. I didn't like them. Oh, it's not perfect. I think we can save that though. I didn't really like them on the Blazer, so they came off because it just wasn't making it act right. But you can play around with that. I also have the battery moved to the front and the ESC moved to the rear on this truck. Oh, wow. That was impressive. There's lots of things you can do. You can also trim the fenders. This body is custom made, so I cleared the fenders when I made it to make sure it would fit. You're going to learn more about driving. You're going to learn more about your truck and upgrading it. And you're going to get even more performance out of it at phase 2. And guess what? Phase 3 is going to make it even better. But instead of just saving up and doing all the upgrades at once, we do them bit by bit. So we don't have to keep working on the truck every single week, which, I mean, that's also fine if you want to do that. But we don't also have to wait around and not have a truck to drive. Because if you're saving up for a $190 rig like the CR18P Juice Up, I mean, those rigs look awesome, but that's a lot of money to just put onto a stock rig when you don't have one and you don't have anything to drive and you don't know if you want to do this hobby or not. I think it's a better bet, a safer bet, to go with a cheaper rig and slowly upgrade it. And pretty universally, you're going to find people saying that the wheels, the tires, the brass, and the servo motor is actually optional. You don't have to do the motor. The stock motor can push around even upgrade tires for a good long time. I want to try this hill over here. Now you see those stock tires, and without enough weight on the front axle, we weren't going to get up this. But like this, we're making some progress. There we go. Let's see, we're going a little off track here. Phase 2, I think, what I would recommend, you're still going to be in probably a class 1 bracket at a comp. I've never been to a crawler comp, actually. I would love to find one. If you know of one in the Ohio area, please tell me. Oh, you see it clawing for traction there? We're almost doing it. More wheel speed? No, that's not the answer. But again, we're going to start with these upgrades. And I want to recommend these upgrades not only for your first upgrades, but because they're going to roll very well into the upgrades that I'm going to recommend for phase 3. Okay, and again, I'm not an expert. I'm not a genius. I'm not the only person in the world who's figured this out. But I just want to inspire you to try and make a plan and get an RC and make a plan for what you want in your upgrades. Because if you procrastinate, you'll never get it done, you'll never get out in the woods, and you'll never have super cool builds like this Gladiator to drive around. Now another good example of this, you can go watch the Blazer video where I built it on my channel, or you can go watch the budget Gladiator build. That's a very good example of stage 2. That was when my Gladiator was in stage 2 because I had a $100 truck, then I started putting a little over $100 in upgrades on it. And now I've moved to stage 3. And again, stage 3 has almost exactly $130 in upgrades on it. I did splurge, spend an extra 20 bucks, so we're at 150 on these long travel shocks, which are working after some very careful adjustment. So as we move to stage 3, the Gladiator has all of the same upgrades, the battery, the servo, and the brass and the tires that the Blazer has, but in addition it has the Little Guy Racing Parts motor, and we have Little Guy Racing Parts Super 8 nylon axles. Now the Super 8 axles are more expensive than, say, something like the Mias Racing axles, but the problem with the Mias axles is you can't build it bit by bit. They kind of all come together. These Little Guy Racing Parts axles, you can put stock parts on them. So the brass knuckles that I bought for phase 1 went onto the axle housings that I purchased for phase 2. You technically only need the housings, that steering linkage up front because it's wider, and the axle shafts. Those are the only things that are actually different about these. I'm going to recommend buying a bearing kit as well, because the bearing kit, if you drive through a lot of water, your bearings may already be rusty, and the Little Guy Racing Parts bearings are sealed. On top of that, it's kind of hard to get the bearings out of the front axle. I'm not entirely sure how you would do it. And I also have the Little Guy Racing Parts brass wheel hexes. Those are the parts, under the tires where they connect to the axle. And I have the brass differential covers as well to try and add some more weight to the nylon axles. But you don't want to add too much, because weight isn't what you need. It's about where you put the weight. And look at this thing go. It's like a lizard. I love it. That motor has so much download torque and crawling. Can we come up this way? I don't think any of the other rigs did. The Little Guy Racing Parts U-joint axle shafts I have in the front really add to the turning radius. So if you went with bare bones, just the axles and the bearings that you need to be able to use these, it's only like $95. And if you go with all of the brass and all of the other upgrades that I have on the axles, it'll come out to about, my goodness, it just went up that like it was nothing. It'll come out to about 100, and well, with the shocks 150, but if we exclude the shocks, which you don't really need, especially not if you put the flex extensions on, look at it go. Wow. That'll be about $130. Again, it was the same amount you paid in phase 1 and in phase 2, and next thing you know, you've just been skipping lunch, and every 6 weeks getting some, you've been, budgeting your lunch properly, and you've been upgrading it every 6 weeks, and now all of a sudden you have a $400 rig that crawls like crazy. I have slipped off this rock. I just don't think this one's doable So the blazer went up this. Let's see what this does. The Super 8s add 16 millimeters total of track width, and that is a very world-changing amount of stability when on off-tilter sections. The steering angle that they add really helps you get control as well. It just makes the whole thing so much more planted. And the creeper motor makes it ride smooth and have the power that it needs. You have the traction from the tires. That's pretty much all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to inspire you guys to make a plan. And I know that going with brass servo and tires, and then later switching to little guy motors. Woo! Okay, you still gotta know how to drive. So you can do whatever kind of an upgrade path that you want. You can do much different upgrades. You can do different RCs. You can do a different scale if you wanted to go with 10th scale. I'm just trying to inspire you that there might be a way you can save some money and start getting into the hobby even when you didn't think you could. And if you're a beginner and you're looking for a recommendation, then I can recommend to you that an SCX24 is a good budget option. Then you can add brass and tires and it'll really help it. Then you can add little guy racing parts axles, and boy, will it improve it even more. Let's see if we can make this same off-kilter section that stopped the other two trucks. Oh, I didn't like that. It needs to be higher. See how far we've come down the hill, and we're still not flipping though. If we lock our wheel into this little divot, I think we'll make it. Oh yes, there it is. Phase 3 at its finest, guys. Oh, I love this truck so much. Makes me want a real gladiator. But go ahead and put in the comments, what would you do for your phases? Where are you with your builds, and what's your plan with where you're going? So what if someone wanted to run the Mias racing axles instead of the little guy axles? There'd be multiple reasons for that. Maybe you don't want the width. Maybe you don't want... These are slightly more expensive, but if you budget right and you buy it piece by piece, you don't have to pay a whole lot more for them. But this one has been about $130 at every phase of its 3 phases. If you want to do it cheaper, you could go with a base camp. I'm wondering, would it work? You guys tell me in the comments below. I think this would work, but instead of going with brass knuckles, if we're going to go with the Mias axles, those come with knuckles on them, but I really feel like tires are really what you need more than anything. So if I were going to go another route and try and do this cheaper and use Mias axles, this would be my plan that I haven't tried yet. I would try and put the servo on, maybe a budget servo. The budget Eco Power servo is a direct mount, and those will mount to the plastic Mias axles. Apparently, the aluminum ones that I have are different, so don't go aluminum if you want to be able to reuse your servo mounts or your direct mount servos from phase 1. That was a problem I ran into with this, because I had all the brass on it like I did in the budget build video, but then when I went to put on the Mias axles, not only could I not mount my servo, and the servo interfered with my flex and all of my suspension travel that I really loved on how it handled on this truck, I also had to take all of my brass upgrades off, and they were just sitting in a box doing nothing. I mean, sure, you can move them to another rig, but it's better if you plan your build so that you don't have extra parts that are just sitting around, right?
That is more efficient.
So if I were going to go with the Mias route, I think I would do a motor and heavy brass rims, and then a steering servo, and that would be phase 1. In phase 2, if you go on Amazon right now, you can get the Mias Racing plastic axle housings. I found Injora high clearance linkage, the suspension linkage, and then 48mm long travel RC Lions shocks, and that came to another $100. So you'd be into the truck for right about $300. I guess I got 4 in this thing. So you would be significantly cheaper. It'd be about $100 cheaper. Of course, you wouldn't have quite as much width, but you would have more steering radius. I mean, pick your poison, I guess, right? Also, the rig is probably going to be quite a bit heavier because you got those heavy brass rims on there. I don't know how that would handle. What do you guys think? Should I start saving up my Jeep fund and try and get those? I'm not sure. I've got so many different things I want to build. I have so many more videos I want to do. If you want to be here for them, you're going to have to stick around. And there's a way you can do that here on YouTube. But I believe in you. I believe you're smart enough to figure that out if you want to. And I'm not going to tell you how to do it. But go ahead and please tell us in the comments, what would you do for 3 phases? What did you do for 3 phases? What would you recommend for someone's first rig? And what would you recommend for their first upgrades? I appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you so much. Until next time, stick to the old paths. Oh no! Come on. Come on. Oh, he's going to take a nap. Back to work. Oh, great. Teaching your kids and your grandkids how to save up their money and work for something is a really useful skill. It's almost like that rugby movie, what was it called? Forever Strong, where he taught them all those life-changing character qualities that they learned while playing rugby. Someone needs to make a Jeep version. Forever Jeep. This could be big.